Okay, well, good evening, y'all, and glad to see you here. And it was kind of exciting this morning hearing Billy preach and having a guest worship team. It was kind of nice getting to take a chance and be back in the sound booth and not up on stage. Thank you. Oh man, that was so much fun getting to having all of them here. And so Sunday evening we will be singing from the hymnals, or we will have the words on the screen also, but we're sticking with hymns on the Sunday evenings. So the first song is going to be, I have it in the wrong order, Paula. We'll flip it because we'll make it easy on Paula. So first one's going to be 476, page 476 in the hymnal, and we will have the words on screen as well. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. So sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me and he talks with me. Tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Next is page 153. By the way, thank you, Paula, for stepping in tonight. We have Paula filling in on slides tonight. And again, number 153. I have found a friend in Jesus. He's everything to me. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. The lily of the valley, in him alone I see all I need to cleanse and make me fully whole. In sorrow he's my comfort, in trouble he's my stay. He tells me every care on him to roll. the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He is the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. He all my grief has taken and all my sorrows borne. In temptation he's my strong and mighty tower. I have all for him forsaken and all my idols torn from my heart, and now he keeps me by his power. Though all the world forsake me and Satan tempt me sore, through Jesus I shall safely reach the goal. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. He will never, never leave me, nor yet forsake me here, while I live by faith into his blessed will. A wall of fire about me, I've nothing now to fear, while his manna he my hungry soul shall fill. Then sweeping up to glory to see his blessed face, where rivers of delight shall ever roll. He's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star. He's the fairest of 10,000 to my soul. Amen. And now we will turn the service over to Brother Johnny. Demonstrates that God's love is readily available to everyone and that Jesus is always ready and able to heal and restore those who come to faith in him. As we reflect on this moving story, we're encouraged to approach Jesus with confidence and trust, knowing that he is always ready and willing to help us achieve wholeness. Additionally, we are called to follow Jesus' example by reaching out to those in need and showing love and compassion to all, regardless of their situation or status. Something I picked up, AI wrote that, artificial intelligence. I was messing around with it yesterday and just put that in there and thought, well, everybody's talking about it. Everybody was, saying it's the thing to be. It sounded pretty, that sounded pretty good, but again, it kind of sounded dry and woody, don't you think? Huh? Well, Johnny Intelligence is coming up next, so it's probably going to go downhill from there, ladies, gentlemen. But we're going to talk about the story of the Canaanite woman. We're all familiar with it. One of the things that people think about is Jesus calling the Canaanite woman or the Syrophoenician woman a dog. Now, Matthew uses the term Canaanite, and we know, if we know our Old Testament, a lot about the Canaanites. They were the enemies of God. They were the enemies of Israel. These were the people who would come in and lead
the Jews astray into idolatry, and then, God would have to basically punish them. They'd get back on the right track, it seems, and then the Canaanites would come back in. But what we have to understand this, in the first chapter of Matthew, we read that there's two Canaanites in Jesus' genealogy, Tamar and Rahab. Just kind of one of them interesting facts. Again, like I said earlier, Canaanite is the same as Mark's Syro-Phoenician. Matthew uses the Jewish term, since he's writing to a Jewish audience. Mark is writing to a Roman Gentile audience. Canaanite wouldn't mean very much to them, basically, so he uses the term Syro-Phoenician to differentiate her from a Phoenician who's from Libya, or Libro-Phoenician. Church tradition has this woman's name as Justa and her daughter Bernice. Mark refers to her as a Greek. She's a very smart woman. She wasn't your average woman. Matter of fact, as we get into the story and we read and understand it, you're going to understand she has her head on pretty straight. The way she answers Jesus' parable with a parable, and just the persistence that she has, marks her out as a pretty extraordinary woman. She was well off. She had money. Mark says that her daughter had a bed. Greek word for bed is kleinen, compared to krabaton, which means pallet or stretcher. Only the rich could afford beds. She understood Jesus' parable and answered it with a parable. But she had three things against her, basically. She was a Gentile, she is a woman, and her daughter was demon-possessed. Any other person, any other Jew probably would not touch her with a 10-foot pole. Kind of an interesting story, and again, we'll get into the issue about Jesus calling her a dog later on. I will tell you this, there's no way around it. You cannot sugarcoat it. Jesus called her a dog. Again, it was probably to get her to test her faith. Again, like I said, we'll get into that here in a bit. We're going to use Matthew's rendition of the story. In some areas, we might use a little bit of Mark, what Mark says, since they're both kind of go together. We're going to start with Matthew 15:21, and we're going to use the Net edition. After going out from there, Jesus was talking about he was leaving. He just got finished leaving an argument with the Pharisees. Jesus went to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now, if we think about Tyre and Sidon, what significance does that have? Jezebel was from Tyre. Again, this is our old church history. This is Old Testament history. But again, if we can think about the Old Testament history, it can kind of help and make these stories more rich. Sidon. What about Sidon? Sidon was where Elijah was sent to take care of the widow. A little bit of flour. But again, maybe we have an Elijah thing going on here. A different Elijah. That one is in 1 Kings. The Elijah was supported by the widow. 1 Kings 7:8-24, and Luke 4-26. We also know that both were more open to repentance than the Jewish towns of Chorazin and Bethsaida. Tyre and Sidon were kind of well off. Matter of fact, during years of famine, Galilee being the bread box of Israel, the breadbasket, I should say, of Israel. If there was a famine, people would, the farmers, the big farmers, would take all their grain and sell it to the people in Tyre and Sidon because basically they had the money. Now they would take this grain up there and sell it, and they would let the poorer Galileans just basically starve. So there's a little bit of animosity here as we go through here. Matter of fact, there's always going to be some exclusiveness and animosity in this area. I mean, the Jews can't get along with the Greeks. The Greeks can't get along with the Jews. The Galilean Jews can't get along with the Judean Jews, and everybody just basically dumped on the Samaritans. You know, there was always some exclusiveness going on here, and it kind of makes you think, do you think these people could even get along with anybody? You know, they were just always, seems like they were always at each other's throat. But now Jesus went to the region, and he did not go to the cities themselves, just the region. That's one thing you kind of see. Jesus will go to regions, but he won't go into Gentile towns or cities. 15:22, a Canaanite woman from that area came and cried out, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is horribly demon-possessed." Basically what she's asking is Jesus to exorcise the demon out of her. We know that he's done this before in Matthew. Matter of fact, I think it's Matthew 8. He talks about the centurion's servant, I believe. So this isn't the only case of demon of healing of a Gentile in Matthew. Now the Greek sentence starts with the Greek word "I do" or "behold." This is just basically to add interest or emphasis. So instead of a Canaanite woman from the area came and cried out, we could say, "Behold, a Canaanite woman from the area came and cried out." It just kind of makes you want to just stop and understand that what you're reading afterwards is you really need to understand it and think about it, just not breeze over it, but something important's being said. It said the Canaanite woman from that area came, left her house. She left her house and sought Jesus out. She probably heard about Jesus. Again, even though she was a Gentile, she was basically on the border of Galilee. You had Galilee here, and then you had Tyre and Sidon here. So, Jesus' reputation as being a healer and had gotten out and got around. And what really interested me is she sought Jesus out. This wasn't one of these things where Jesus was walking down the road and she thought, well, hey, what do I have to lose? She actually put the effort in there to find him. Faith. She had the faith. And this is the whole point of of this whole pericope, or this whole story, is this woman's faith. She's just awesome. And a lot of times we take the point of, Jesus calling her a dog, or basically her daughter a dog, and we take that and we dwell on that, but again, we don't dwell on the results. We just need to kind of work with this and be quite honest with what's being said, and just move on from there, because like I said, Jesus is going to say some things that a typical Jew would say to a Gentile. It's just something that it's going to do. It's that exclusiveness. But again, the Gentiles, these Hellene Greeks, these these Greeks would do the same for the Jews. You know, everybody was against each other. Nobody liked anybody, and you know, it's like everybody's raised on a sour pickle. You know, waiting on a sour pickle. Nobody could get along with anybody. But again, it's one of these things, you know, that you know, her faith is what makes the story, not the thing about her being called a dog. It says right here that the woman cried out. It's words in crazen, imperfect tense of the verb, suggests repeated efforts to get the attention of Jesus. Now, when I first read this and first really came in contact with it and studied it, I thought this whole thing didn't last but maybe at the most 2 or 3 minutes. You know, here comes a woman, she's hollering and screaming, and then within a matter of seconds, she runs up there, drops to her knees, and explains it to it, and you know, everything happened real quick. This was a long, drawn-out process. She might have been hollering for 10, 15 minutes. We know she was hollering for a very long time because as we get further into the story, we'll see where the disciples say, you know, give her what she wants. I'm tired. We're tired of this. Send her away. So, you know, this was a long, drawn-out process. And another thing I kind of got to figuring out when I studied this was this was probably a pretty intense situation. You know, emotions were running high, and really, to tell you the truth, there was probably going to be only 2 endings to this scenario. This woman was going to get her daughter healed, or somebody's going to end up walking away with a pump knot on their side of their head, hard but big enough to hook a bass boat to. Somebody was going, you know, something was going to have to happen. You know, this has got to the situation where you know, the emotions were running wild, and we couldn't tell what was going to happen. But again, she was crying out, just constantly crying out. Probably was speaking and calling out in a agitated and excitable way. What she says, notice what she says, have mercy on me. You know, she has nothing to give, right? She's just saying, look, I mean, I might be a well-off Gentile woman, but again, I have nothing to give. Have mercy on me. I have nothing. Help me. Now, if we notice in this verse too, we'll see the word Lord, kurios. This is the first of 3 times that this word is used in the verses studied. Next term, Son of David. Matthew uses this term to refer to Jesus 8 times in Matthew. Son of David, descendant of King David, who would establish a mighty kingdom. So again, there's something else about her faith. She kind of understands what's going on. She understands. She knows that that something's going on, because it would be really strange. It's really interesting that this Canaanite woman would use this term, considering, you know, she doesn't have a dog in this fight. She's a Gentile. She's a Canaanite. But there has to be something happen. The spirit or something would had to helped her to make that understanding. It shows that she had the insight, better insight of most Jews. So she is a step ahead of the game than probably a lot of people in Israel. Last phrase, horribly demon-possessed. The woman gives no indication as to the way her daughter was troubled. She only emphasizes the extent. So apparently, this child was demon possessed in a very bad way. Matthew 15:23. But he did not answer her a word. Then his disciples came and begged him, send her away, because she keeps on crying after us. Kind of difficult to be sure if they really wanted her because she was an unclean Canaanite, or if her requesting that Jesus shut her up by giving her what she wants. In either case, the disciples' response is less than compassionate, kind of revealing a callous lack of sensitivity to the woman's desperate appeal. Like I said, these disciples were pretty shallow. They really didn't really think about her situation that she was in. They were just wanting her to shut up. Matter of fact, since they couldn't get Jesus to answer, this woman might have been saying something to them, saying, well, if Jesus won't help me, you help me. What's going on here? How come you're not helping me? What's the problem here? Again, this whole situation was basically fixing to come to a head. And it was, like I said, a pretty interesting situation. Matthew emphasized, wait a second, let me see, I think I got ahead of myself. Okay, here we are. But, Matthew 15:23, but he did not answer her a word. Then his disciples came and begged him, send her away because she keeps crying after us. Notice he didn't say a word. He didn't answer her a word. He just basically avoided her, even though she was screaming and yelling and carrying on. The disciples came and begged him to send her away because she keeps on crying after us. Again, I will tell you what, this is fixing to be a situation where school is fixing to start. Jesus is fixing to teach these disciples a lesson. It seems like in the Bible where every time the disciples kind of grouse and carry on, there's a lesson fixing to be taught. Jesus is fixing to do something to teach them a lesson. Again, Matthew emphasizes his silence by Jesus didn't answer a word, which is unusual, because if you think, doesn't he usually respond to any appeal for help? I mean, could this be the first time that he did not respond to somebody asking him for help? At times he even took the initiative and help before request was made to him. The disciples said, send her away. Basically, give her what she wants. She keeps shouting after us. Now, the word shouting or crying out is the same word that was used in verse 22. Kind of interesting word. It's based on the croaking of ravens, a braying of a donkey, or a woman screaming in childbirth. Again, it was probably pretty wild. She was probably screaming at the top of her lungs, and it probably didn't sound too nice. But like I said earlier, they might know that right now that they are a target of her wrath. They wanted to be rid of the woman and her embarrassing noise. If they were thinking, they would have noticed that this is the first person Jesus has turned away. Also, there's no indication that the disciples really wanted the daughter healed. Again, the disciples are acting like knotheads and school is almost ready to be called into session. This Gentile Canaanite woman is fixing to show them what real faith is. 15:24. So he answered, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. This he answered to the disciples. The woman hadn't ran up yet and dropped down to her knees in a posture of worship. He was just basically saying that to the disciples. Lost sheep of the house of Israel can be taken more than one way. One way it could be referred to all Israel is lost, or all the people from the house of Israel who are lost. Either way, this situation is putting Jesus against the disciples. Now it's fixing to get good. 15:25. But she came and bowed down before him and said, Lord, help me. I believe this is the second time that the term Lord, she uses the term Lord. Again, we kind of see maybe a little bit of faith going on here. The word Lord could basically mean, term we use it, Lord, Master, Sir. I really think it's used in the first term, Lord. He knows that she knows what he is. She knows that he is the Son of God, the Son of David, that we've seen in earlier verses. Her request is simple. No relying on her stature, her money, just a simple request. There's nothing she could do. We really don't know. At this time in Israel, or in this area, Tyre and Sidon, in the Middle East, there was a lot of what we would call faith healers, miracle workers, professed miracle workers, and there's not any telling how much money she might have spent with these miracle workers to try to get them to try to get that demon out of that daughter. We really know that she was a mama bear. She was a man. She was a woman on a mission, and you got to really be careful here because us men are outnumbered. So I got to really be nice and push this. Right now is where it starts getting interesting. Right now is where Jesus, verse 26, where Jesus is wanting to test her faith. What is Jesus is wanting to see how serious she is. How serious do you take me as a Savior? Do you think I can do this, or do you think that I'm just one of these miracle workers who you might have spent money on in the past? She's going to put the heat to this woman. She's going to really just basically insult her. But again, it turns out good. And this woman, even though she takes it as an insult, it doesn't affect her. It doesn't affect her. She has something more on her mind than being called a dog. What she has on her mind is she wants Jesus to heal her daughter. And everybody who knows this story knows that he does. And it's kind of interesting, but it's really, we have to wait and do these next 2 or 3 verses before we can get to the ending. Now, this is what Jesus replies: It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs, he said. Now, here's where a lot of people get hung up on this: dogs. In the history of interpretation, some people have looked at this kind of bad. I know when I was studying this, there was a gentleman, I think his name was Beale. He said that this was chauvinism, sexism. This was the worst that it could be. Jesus shouldn't have said it. Some people try to maybe lessen the suffering or the bite of the word by saying, well, you know, they use the Greek word here used is for house dog, Kynarion, puppy, what we would call a house dog, while a regular wild dog or an outside dog would be a Kuon. Really, it doesn't make any difference whether it's a house puppy or not. You know, a dog's still a dog. But again, she was pushing it. Jesus was pushing her to find out, you know, what do you got in this? What do you want? You know, how can, you know, how is this, how good is your faith? Again, another thing about the interpretation, some people want to make it sound worse than it is. They wanted to use basically the vulgar term for a female dog. That's not true either. That's kind of reading more into it than what the Bible says. Like I said, Kyneron was the word that's used here. It means puppy or house dog. Diminutive form. Basically what diminutive form is it conveys endearment, small size, or small intensity. What it is they were, you know, it's just explaining that what Jesus was saying here was taking wasn't talking about a regular dog. He was talking about a small dog, a house dog. Now, the Jews at this time would not keep a dog in the house. Dogs were, you know, outside animals. The Gentiles would, of course, have little dogs like we have now, you know, inside the house. I imagine some of these dogs are more psycho than others. I know ours could probably use with some doggy downers. But, you know, it's pretty interesting situation. And these dogs, when these people would eat, you know, of course, crumbs would fall from the table like they always do. These dogs would be underneath the table eating the crumbs. Now, sometimes when a person got finished with a meal, they would take a piece of bread, they'd rip off a piece of bread, and they'd clean their hands with the bread. Then they'd throw the bread off on the floor, and that way the dog would not get a crumb. It would get a fairly large piece of bread. I think it's kind of what Jesus is alluding to in the next thing. But again, the thing about the dog, you can't get around it. You can't make it sound right. You can't make it sound good. The only thing you can say is just basically, it was just a test of her faith. He was just testing her faith. And again, he's probably doing this to teach the disciples a lesson too. So we need to keep that in mind. 15:27. Yes, Lord, she replied, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that falls from their master's table. 15:27. Third time the word Lord is used. Again, I think that shows that she is saying that he is Jesus, he is the Messiah, the Son of God, the Son of David, and she's not using it as a term of respect like sir. Now I want you to notice here that Jesus says a parable, okay? She replies with a parable to answer his parable. So she's pretty smart. She's pretty sharp. She's a pretty sharp woman. And right here, there is nothing to say that there was any period of time between what he said and what she said. So basically, he said his part and she said her part. What she was saying is she's saying, hey, look, you know, I understand. I understand what you're doing. I understand that you have to go to the people of Israel first, lost sheep of the house of Israel. I understand that. I'm not asking for you to do that. What I'm asking is I'm asking for just a little bit that comes, that falls off their table. And when she said that, I cannot think that maybe a smile crossed Jesus' face. Because you know what? This was the first time that he lost an argument. Think about it. He lost an argument to a Gentile woman who basically was a second-class citizen. And I cannot help but think that when she replied, a big smile come across her face, and Jesus maybe said, basically what I said, woman, your faith is great. Let what you said be done for you. And it says, and her daughter was healed from that hour. It's just, her faith was just awesome. I mean, she was up against a bunch of headwinds. I mean, she was up against man-woman issues. She was up against social issues. She was up against religious issues. But she just stayed in there, and she just stuck it out, toughed it out, and she ended up getting what she was wanting. Now, I want you to understand this. Jesus commends her faith with the phrase, megali pistis, great faith. Great faith. Faith that is over and above what is necessary. Great faith. And, he just compliments her. And one last thing before we go, I want you to think. Did Jesus ever commend his disciples on their faith? Do you remember where Jesus said something like, your faith is great? Or I have not seen greater faith in Israel. So this woman right here would be one of the best examples for faith or believing in Jesus Christ that would be in Matthew or Mark, even in the whole New Testament. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Well, if there's not, I think Miss Lois is coming back from the hospital tomorrow. We probably need to keep her in our prayers. Everybody here, and of course everybody on who view us online. I'll tell you what, I got to thinking. I was outside trying to get my thoughts together, and I've only known Miss Lois for probably about 5 or 6 years. But do you women who have known her longer, and man, do you think that she might be of the same caliber of woman as this one right here? Like I said, I didn't know her that long, but she kind of, to me, had the inclination to be the same woman as this Canaanite woman or this Syrophoenician. If there's not any questions or any comments, I'm going to close us in prayer. Father, I just want to thank you for this wonderful day, and thank you for these people that have came here. Please be at the Vacation Bible School as it happens in the next week. Just lead, guide us, and direct us. Father, help us to become great women great people of faith. Just help us and keep us safe. These things we ask in your Son's name.